Hello, my name is April Massard, and I'm doing my progress report presentation. And my informational report is about the CSA, which is child sexual abuse or assault, becoming more prevalent for parents and guardians. So the purpose of my informational report is to inform parents and guardians of the warning signs, impacts, and resolutions of child sexual abuse, which throughout my informational report I will be referring to it as CSA. So to summarize my report, on April 17, 2016, I presented a proposal for my informational report to John Barber, the professor, and he approved my topic, and I then began the process of formulating my informational report. So, CSA is a topic that is rarely addressed because it's an uncomfortable subject to discuss and inform people about. So, CSA is very prevalent, and that is exactly why I want to discuss this subject, because 1 in 5 girls and 1 in 20 boys are victims of CSA. Children are most vulnerable to experience CSA between the ages 7 and 13, and they're at risk because they're being taken advantage of and not able to speak up for themselves. So this is why parents should be very observant of their children and know the warning signs and know what to do when this occurs. In the process of working on my informational report, I have completed tasks 1 through 3, and I'm in the process of finalizing tasks 4 and 5. And task 6 is going to be the final task that I'll conduct. I am thinking about the future ways I can get involved, and I'm also going to research future ways that I can get involved with supporting CSA victims. So within task 1, I had to acquire a basic understanding of the CSA itself and the different forms of CSA. CSA is when an offender deliberately takes advantage of a minor physically, psychologically, sexually, or even just acts of neglect. CSA is one of several forms of child abuse that involve sexual encounters and activities. A minor is absolutely unable to consent to any method of sexual activity. Therefore, interacting with children in this way is a crime and can have a huge impact on the victim's life. So there are many different forms of CSA, and it includes vaginal, oral, or anal sexual intercourse, fondling, exposing oneself to a child, masturbating in front of a child or forcing a child to masturbate, creating, owning, and distributing pornographic images or videos of children, and indecent telephone calls or messages. Task 2 involved me determining the warning signs of CSA and the impacts that it has on victims when it goes unignored. There's different warning signs. I don't want to go into all of them because I will further discuss this in my informational report. But there are physical signs which consist of straining to walk or sit down, bloody, stained, or torn underclothes, bruises, swelling, or bleeding in genital area, itchy, burning, or painful sensations in the genital area. There's also behavioral signs of a CSA victim, and that consists of feeling threatened when physically contacted. The victim seems to be depressed or struggling with PTSD. The victim seems to have suicidal thoughts and commit self-harm often. And sometimes victims can also develop certain phobias. They might refuse to bathe, or they might bathe too much. They might have nightmares or wet the bed. So there are different signs. There's also verbal signs. If they seem like they don't want to talk or communicate as much as they used to, those are also things to look out for. Task 3 consisted of me interviewing a CSA survivor, and she's actually a friend of mine whose assault went unignored and has been hidden from everyone. She has no interest in reporting the assault, and for personal disclosure, chose to be anonymous for this interview. So I asked her 6 questions. 1, what is child sexual abuse? 2, how long have you been a CSA victim? 3, was the perpetrator of the assault someone you were close to? 4, why have you chosen not to report the assaults? 5, do you think that these assaults played a role on the choices you've made growing up? And 6, what advice would you give to a parent or guardian who may or may not suspect CSA is going on within their environment? Task 4 involved me accessing information about how to communicate and get through and help a CSA victim. If there's a concern that someone is being affected by CSA, you definitely need to sit down and have a conversation with them to clarify what is going on. When you do have this conversation, you want to do so in a safe area where the perpetrator is nowhere around the victim so that they do not feel threatened. You want the victim to feel comfortable with you, to be able to speak to you about what has happened to them. So in detail, I will go into the different ways to communicate with a CSA victim in my informational report. In task 5, I had to analyze the data that I gathered and the research that I came up with to finalize my report. I'm currently in the process. I have drafted my report, but I am in the process of finalizing my report, so I still have some research and data that I have not yet applied to my informational report. So going into that, I then have task 6, which is also me researching and considering further work to where I can get involved in helping CSA victims and supporting them. So I did develop a updated schedule which consisted of me completing task 1, which is acquiring the basic understanding of CSA on April 14th. As well, on April 14th, I determined warning signs and impacts CSA has on its victims. On the 24th, I conducted an interview with the CSA survivor. On the 26th, I accessed information about solutions to CSA. And I plan to have finished analyzing my data and finalizing my report, as well as doing the future research on involvement with supporting CSA victims. I plan to have that done on April 30th, and then my final report should be complete on May 3rd. So to bring this progress report presentation to an end, I just want to remind you all that I have completed tasks 1 through 3. I'm in the process of finalizing tasks 4 and 5, and I do plan on finishing up task 6 before my report is due so that I can include that in there. I did fall behind with my deadlines, but with the updated schedule I just discussed, I should be right on plan to have my report finalized by May 3rd. And that's basically it, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you.